Back on the Charles again with Eli Levitt, class of 2015. I'm Bill Spaulding. Glad to be with you. Eli, set up here for fourth varsity race where Harvard will also send out its fifth varsity team. So two Harvard teams and a Dartmouth squad here for this matchup. A chance to get things going at the eights after Harvard took home a win in the fours to start the day off.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the launch.
Yeah, we're glad to have you with us. Let's run you through the lineups here. We'll start with the fifth varsity for Harvard. The coxswain is Mary Ye, a sophomore. Wes Fabian, a junior, is the stroke. Freshman Nate Dempsey sits in seat 7. Then it's David Gonzalez, a freshman, in seat 6. Liam Daly, a junior, in seat 5. That's Eric Rodrigo, senior, in seat 4. Sophomore Reed McMurtry in seat 3. Al Mazurita, a senior, in seat 2. In the bow is Chris Jarrett, a sophomore from Redwood Scholars out in California. Down in boat number 4, the Harvard 4V, Anya Kennedy Yoon is the coxswain. Zach Altshuler, a freshman, is the stroke. Freshman Noah Burhans in seat 7. Sophomore Dylan Dutman in seat 6. Sophomore Isaac Walker in seat number 5. Seat number 4 is sophomore Nick Kachanik. Freshman Seb Schwartz is in seat 3. Sophomore Brady Stevens in seat 2. And sophomore Josh Cuppersmith, that was the 3V line there. Let me go back to the 4V boat. Zach Altshuler, the stroke. Noah Burhans in seat 7. Dylan Dutman in seat 6. Isaac Walker in seat 5. Pat Anderson, a senior, in seat 4. Michael Yuan, a junior, in seat 3. Tom Spear, a freshman, in seat 2. And freshman Michael Senvisi in the bow. And then rounding things out for Dartmouth, the Big Green send out a lineup that looks like this at fourth varsity for Dartmouth, coming off a weekend where they took on Delaware and Princeton. Their fourth varsity is coxswain by Liz Michael. Alan Carls is the stroke. Sam Lee in seat 7. Grant McArthur in seat 6. Sean O in seat 5. Joel Wang in seat 4. David Tremonti in seat 3. Jonathan Liu in seat 2. And Alec Abate is the bow. Well, this fifth and fourth varsity for Harvard, a lot of youngsters, a lot of freshmen and sophomores, so it gives you the experience here to really build forward, work on your technique,
Absolutely.
and hope to move up to the third, second, and first boats as your career progresses.
Absolutely. Always fun to see a lot of depth. Harvard putting out 2 boats here.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, 56 Harvard rowers and 7 coxswains today, so 63 Crimson over the course of 5 races.
Looks like they're just sorting out their final aim, their alignment here. Should be off soon.
Dartmouth at the top of your picture, then it's the Harvard 4V in the middle, the Harvard 5V at the bottom of your screen. Not a whole lot of wind today, but still, even a 5 or 6 mile an hour breeze can push the boat a bit when you're trying to get aligned here.
Yeah, I remember racers who thought this could be a funny moment. You know it's going to start sometime, but just tapping it around, waiting for the final go.
It's where you have that build-up ready to go, ready to explode, and just having to sit and wait. At least today it's warm.
Yeah.
Temperature above 50 degrees, so you see the short sleeves and shorts today instead of the long sleeves and the spandex the whole way down.
Absolutely. You'll be glad to get the legs out, get the arms out after a long winter.
Dartmouth, Harvard, and Harvard here in the fourth varsity race. Be Harvard and Dartmouth in third varsity, then MIT will jump back in with Dartmouth and Harvard for the second varsity race, and the varsity 8 race for the Big Lynn Bowl.
And it sounds like they're going to redo the alignment because the boat was too close to the stake boat, and it's going to run into it with their first stroke, so they had to push everybody back out and get them back aligned.
I always say this is where you'd think you need to call MIT in, even though they're not in this race. Get a bunch of engineers out here to figure out exactly how things need to be aligned to start the race. Dartmouth up top. Harvard's 4V in the middle. Harvard's 5V at the bottom. It does get very precise into half a foot, a full foot in a race that ends up being 2,000 meters, but you don't want that little tiny head start.
Yeah. Well, this should be a fun one, especially always great to be racing next to your own squad as well. You know, they've obviously seen each other a lot in practice, so now they get to go get after it. And the 5V here is it's, whatever they can show is going to be a good race and a good opportunity.
Yeah, if you're in that
hard competition.
If you're in that 5V boat, you're thinking, hey, is this where we prove that maybe move up into the 4V?
Absolutely.
And if you're the 4V boat, there's that little pressure of, hey, we can't lose to the 5V.
That's right.
They're off with Dartmouth, Harvard, and Harvard. Harvard's 4th varsity in the middle, Harvard's 5th varsity at the bottom.
Looks like a good clean start for everybody. Trying to establish a bit of a pace, get some speed up early, and then settle in.
And pretty tight through the opening chute here, the first few strokes. The two Harvard boats are almost identical, neck and neck, and they
started out of the Harvard Cruise. They've definitely been practicing those recently, and that they've been going side by side all spring, so it must be nice for them to see it pay off here, getting an early lead out on Dartmouth.
Already almost the full length, 8-seat lead for Harvard's 4th varsity, and they have about 2 seats on the Harvard 5th varsity.
Yeah, now you can see it start to settle in, get a little more length. You're going to try and find that rhythm they can sustain for the rest of the race.
At this point, you built that big cushion. If you're Harvard at the 4V, you're glad to have the Harvard 5V there with you. That pushes them here in what looks like it could be a competitive race between these two groups.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It always helps to be able to see somebody and push off somebody. And right now, it's looking like the Harvard 5V is going to provide that for the 4V over the Dartmouth boat.
It's about a 4-seat lead for the Harvard 4V over the 5V, a minute and a half in as they've crossed the 500-meter mark. Dartmouth, open water, already a couple of lengths behind.
Very smooth into the headwind right now, and if 4-seat in that 4V, Pat Anderson, I rode with him. He's got a great energy, a great attitude in the middle of that boat. He's just powering it along.
They're quiet right now, this group. They're nice and smooth, very little splash coming up on the strokes, and out to about a 7-seat lead over the 5V for Harvard's 4V, and the lead continues to grow back to Dartmouth.
And the 5V's got to feel good about this. They're in a great position here, staying within contact of their 4V. They're going to be in for a great race here in the second half.
Lightweight rowing, that 160-pound limit. How tough is it for some of these guys to keep underneath that line throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. It varies for everybody. It's funny you mentioned that 6-seat here in the 5V. Al, great guy. I overlapped with him as well. He actually started on the heavyweight side. He's one of the few converts that bring it down to weight, but while everyone else is struggling to stay under. But it's just kind of there are ways to go about it. Everybody's been through it before. The coaches provide a lot of support, so they get there.
How close in the off season do you try to stay to that number, or do you go up in the off season and have to come back down in the bulk of the season time?
Yeah, you get some people that are the natural lightweights. Pat Anderson, as I was mentioning, great example. He's just rock solid, never has to worry about it. And other guys, they can hang 5+ pounds above in the off season over the summer. Take the activity off, get some bigger meals in. But then once you start exercising every day, you're training so much it comes off pretty quick.
Underneath the bridge and past 1,000 meters in an unofficial time of 3:15.
And just a smooth race here. Again, they're going to be pushing out. It's great for the 4V to have that 5V there to make them keep pushing instead of kind of resting on the laurels.
Yeah, they just started to pick up open water, the 4V ahead of the 5V. But then from the 5V back to the Dartmouth 4V, you're talking about 3 to 4 lengths at this point. It's a dominant start for Harvard today.
Yeah, strong start. Dartmouth's out, they're putting a good effort in. Great race, just not quite at the same caliber right now. They always tricky for Dartmouth in the early season races.
Oh, yeah.
It stays very cold up there in Hanover, and hard for them to get water time.
Yeah, you think it's cold here as people complain in the late March or early April days, drive the 2 hours north to Hanover up the mountains and then go for it.
Yeah, they always progress at a steeper pace than the rest of the crews in the league, just because they have such a longer winter. But once they get on the water, they start producing the speed.
Heading past the MIT boathouse here with Harvard's 4th varsity ahead. They've gone for 4 minutes and 20 seconds unofficially. Harvard's 5th varsity about open water plus half a length or so back into second, and then you got 4 to 5 lengths back to Dartmouth sitting currently in third.
And this is where, as the 4V, this is an opportunity for them. They're in a race situation. They've been going hard. It's always hard to practice the sprints. This is where they can execute their game plan try something out that they can use later in tighter racing that will no doubt come later in the season. So hopefully they can take advantage, go through their sprint, and feel happy about what they've done here today.
Coxon in that 4V is Anya Kennedy-Yoon. Let's see if she calls for that strong finish for this Crimson group. She took a look to her left there to just gauge where the 5V was and see that it's now about a length lead in the open water for Harvard. 4th V over the 5th V, and then about 5 lengths back to Dartmouth, who's just now crossing the 500-meter mark. This is the 4th varsity race. Harvard and Dartmouth will go head-to-head in 3V. Then it'll be Harvard and MIT and Dartmouth in the 2V, and the 1st varsity race, which will battle for the Bigland Bowl.
And here we see them getting ready for their final push. Again, right now it's not a matter of edging out a win. It's for them to get through their paces, get that experience under their belt, real race scenario.
And there's pretty fair conditions today, too, so
yeah.
Good chance to get a time you can measure yourself against throughout the course of the season as well.
Definitely. A little bit of a headwind, but they're able to kind of push through, stay with nice, smooth, long strokes. So I imagine they'll be pleased with the effort this morning, and good start to the weekend.
Just past the 6-minute mark inside the final 100 meters. Harvard's 4th varsity in 1st, Harvard's 5th varsity in 2nd, Dartmouth's 4th varsity brings it up in 3rd. Heading to the flag now, 6:17 and counting. Harvard's 4th varsity strokes home and takes the win unofficially, 6:23.50. Here comes 5th varsity, and they're 7 seconds behind unofficially at 6.5 minutes.
It's a great row out of the 5V there, staying neck and neck with the 4V. They'll just keep battling in practice the rest of the season.
And now here comes Dartmouth chugging home, already 20 seconds behind the time of Harvard's 4th varsity. Final few strokes for the Big Green. Probably just glad to be out in some nice warm open water today. A beautiful day in Boston, and they come home at about 7 minutes unofficially, so 30 seconds or so behind Harvard. Dominant start for Harvard in the 8s with the win at 4th varsity. 3rd varsity race between Harvard and Dartmouth coming up next on the Ivy League Digital Network.